Hi, welcome back to my garden. It certainly has been a while. If you're a regular viewer, subscriber, and you're probably aware that the last few weeks have been incredibly busy here as we have finally officially opened the art gallery and in fact opened our whole house and grounds as a cultural space. And it's been, I suppose, the closing of a circle of sorts, the culmination of our first 10 years living here in Paripuera, in the northeast of Brazil. The closing of one circle or ending of a cycle and the start of another. Now, of course, I was incredibly busy, running around crazily sorting out last-minute details and putting out the proverbial fires. Everything went very smoothly, but actually during that time I did take a few breaks and I read a book, an interesting book, and that's what I want to talk about today. The Pathless Path by Paul Millett. Now, it's a good book, a very, very interesting one, and I had a copy of it floating around for a while, an electronic copy, that I'd meant to read and I never got around to it. I was curious in part because none other than that world-famous YouTuber extraordinaire, sorry about that, that's a bit of a fumble, YouTuber extraordinaire Ali Abdaal said it was a sort of a life-changing book for him that kind of tipped him over the edge from being a doctor and part-time YouTuber to becoming a full-time content creator. So I'd been meaning to read the book just to see what it was all about. And then I saw an interesting short film which the author, Paul Millett, released, talking about the process of self-publishing. And very interesting. Well, that's a story for another day. What about the Pathless Path? The thing was, it was one of those books that I read, and I don't think I got anything terribly new from it. On the contrary, it seemed like a book that, whilst the details and examples would have been completely different, but a book that I might have written myself. I really did find myself almost in every chapter. And that in itself was a little, the way he expressed things and the way he provided context and analysis. Well, I found it quite validating, comforting, something like that. So, what's the Pathless Path all about? I'm not going to go into terribly much detail other than to say that the sort of, I suppose, elevator pitch version is that he talks about two potential paths. The one was the path that he followed as he finished school and went to university and then became a successful career man, earning a six-figure salary in his 20s. Boston, New York and Boston. And that sort of story of success is what he calls the default path. And what happened to him afterwards, leaving everything behind, doing some work as a sort of freelancer, digital nomad in Asia, and then eventually moving over and finding a wife and living in Taiwan. A real change. And that's the Pathless Path. In essence, what he's talking about is that there are these paths that we follow in life where these stages, the script has been written out for us by someone else. We are in essence following their path. And the Pathless Path is our own unique path that we kind of make up as we go along. And I think as a person, I've been very much tending towards the pathless path pretty much all my life after leaving university. Even my teaching career was slightly unusual. South Africa as a non-qualified teacher, London, Lima, Peru, Sao Paulo, Brazil. And now, the last 10 years, leaving the teaching profession to become a full-time artist living in a small village in the northeast of Brazil. Well, that is a very unique path, true to me, and my circumstances, the twists and turns of my life. But as always, it's sort of, you read a book and other stuff kind of gets caught up in the process. You sort of start noticing things. And in my case, I think this was probably just before I read the book, I came across this fantastic Carl Jung quote, which I will try to remember. So let's say I'm paraphrasing. That if you think of the things that you did when you were a child, where the hours passed like minutes, then that is where you will find your lifetime meaning and pursuit. And then today, while I was mulling over what I was going to say, as always, watching something distracting after lunch on YouTube, and in the sort of suggested options was a fascinating talk, conversation between the writer, American writer Robert Greene, and the neuroscientist from Stanford Neuroscience Laboratory. I think his first name's Andrew Huberman, who is a podcaster as well as a neuroscientist. And fascinating talk. And Robert Greene, if you're not familiar with him, has written a number of very interesting books. One, The 48 Laws of Power, which I haven't read. The book of his that I have read is simply titled Mastery. And it's a fantastic book, very interesting, and I think thought-provoking, potentially life-changing for anybody. The way the Pathless Path was for Ali Abdaal, and I suspect thousands of other people. And Robert Greene has an interesting sort of analytical take on life, philosophy, success. He doesn't seem to be constrained by a sort of pre-existing position. He tries to be objective, let's put it that way. And in this conversation, they were both talking about how there are these activities when you're a child that really draw you in, that engross you, that fire up your imagination. And Robert Greene was suggesting, he referenced the famous psychologist, philosopher, thinker, Abraham Maslow, who apparently wrote about these sort of voices that we listen to when we're very young. I can't remember the exact term. I, of course, was fascinated and then forgot exactly the details. But something like these intuitive interior voices that make us interested in one thing and not another, that draw us in. And from 7 or 8, we start listening to them less and less and less. And this is a story that resonates with me because it's something that I often talk to people about, how we are all artists. We all draw when we're children, and then again, sometime between probably 8 and 10, the voice of realism, the criticism, this is good, this is bad, this isn't going anywhere, this is just a frivolous childhood pursuit, this is serious and worth spending time on. Those voices, the voices from our parents, authority figures, teachers, church leaders, and of course our peer group, become ever more important and sort of draw us away from our natural inclinations. And Robert Greene makes the point that, well, of course we do need to somehow make a living. But his point is that, we are born unique, a never before seen and never again to be repeated genetic mishmash. And to waste that uniqueness on simply doing what someone else suggests we should do, the way they suggest we should do it, following the exact steps, seems rather sad. Another book that I have uses a wonderful analogy where they talk about how it's slightly spiritual, religious. We are born with a canvas, a God-given canvas. But over time, the canvas becomes imprinted with lines, and eventually we do a very naive, childlike paint by numbers, rather than covering the canvas with what we want, and becoming, allowing the artist within to express itself, himself, herself. And so all these ideas have been coming together, and sort of thinking, reflecting after the opening of the gallery, and being given a lot of a tremendous encouragement, and now getting ready for a new stage. The next month will be spent as part of a grant that I received. I actually need to do what we meant to do anyway, which is host school visits. And this morning I had a very interesting meeting with the local social services unit to arrange a visit by old age pensioners, a big busload of old age pensioners, and give them a day out looking at my and my wife's wonderful art. And that'll be fantastic. And that's it. The rest of this year will play out, and we will start thinking about what's going to happen. I will carry on making these videos, and I will try to do it once a week, and I will resurrect the sort of project which is really a message from me to you, that you too, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever your circumstances, all of you need to follow your individual path. And as Robert Greene says, that won't be easy. No one's saying that this is a walk in the park. And you will need to meet your responsibilities and commitments. Of course you will. And Robert suggests that, of course, it's one thing doing this in your 20s, and he sort of became a full-time writer, although he was heading towards that way in his late 30s. And for me, leaving the school at 47, well, that was a whole different story, but I had a lot of interesting capital, both economic and, I suppose, psychological, intellectual, whatever, in the bank. So, yes, here we are. Here's to the next 10 years, in my case. Let's think of it as for me, not let's, I will think of it as a 10-year cycle. I've completed one, and it's time to start another. It won't be exactly 10 years, but let's see where it all leads. As always, I hope this video has found you in a wonderful, happy place, filled with joy and, if not joy, valuable learning experiences. And until next week, from a sunny Brazil, ciao.